She laughed hard. She tossed her hair back and looked at you as if the world had stopped for a second. You felt the connection, didn't you? The conversation flowed. Their gazes met. The next message said, "Lovely meeting you, you're different." And then, silence, emptiness, disappearance. The notification tone, which seemed to have its own sound, vanished. That warm, pulsating interest turned into icy absence. The problem? You don't even know why. And the worst part, neither does she. Here's the first truth you need to swallow hard. Women don't always lose interest because they want to. Often, they pull away without rationally knowing why. Female desire, unlike what's sold in fairy tales, isn't cultivated with flowers, nor watered with constant attention. Female desire, at its core, is wild, intermittent, and deeply contradictory. You think she stopped responding because you were too nice, or because she took too long to ask you out. Maybe you think she lost interest because another guy showed up. But what if I told you that none of that is the real reason? What if what made her disappear was exactly what you believed to be your best strategy? What if, ironically, the more available you made yourself, the more invisible you became? This isn't some Baroom theory. It's neuroscience, psychology, evolutionary biology. It's what Robert Greene would call the charm of absence, the power of not offering yourself completely. It's what Nietzsche was implying when he said that what is done for love is always beyond good and evil. Nietzsche wasn't just talking about romantic love. He was talking about fascination, about surrender, about losing control. And a woman only surrenders to a man who isn't completely available. But calm down. This isn't about playing games or manipulating. That's amateur stuff. What you'll understand today is that there's an emotional architecture behind all seduction. A neural circuit that responds to certain stimuli with attraction and to others with immediate disinterest. And yes, you've probably already activated, without realizing it, all the wrong triggers. Because you were predictable. Because you responded too quickly. Because you believed that being clear about your intentions was the best course of action. But desire, my friend, isn't born from clarity. It's born from doubt, from risk, from the possibility of loss. And that's where most men fail. They confuse affection with value, they confuse presence with power, and above all, they confuse availability with genuine interest. And then they ask themselves, why doesn't she respond anymore if she seemed so engaged before? The answer lies in the nature of women, not the woman idealized in Disney movies, but the real, biological, instinctive woman. The one who, for centuries, survived by choosing the partner who didn't give in too easily. The partner who represented risk, challenge, hierarchy. Yes, that's hard to hear. And perhaps your ego is trying to defend itself now, saying this is unfair, immature, wrong. But seduction, like war and politics, doesn't care about justice. It operates according to invisible laws that govern human attraction, laws you can ignore or master. And today, you will master them, not with magic formulas or cliches, but with a deep, strategic understanding of feminine nature and your own presence as a man. You will discover what truly turns off a woman's emotional desire, why she stops responding even when everything seems perfect, and how to regain that invisible edge that transforms any interaction into a magnetic dance. But first, prepare yourself, because what we're about to expose here goes against everything you've been taught about relationships. It goes against political correctness, it goes against your conditioning, and maybe, just maybe, it goes against the current version of you. But this is necessary, because what doesn't challenge you doesn't transform you, and what doesn't transform you keeps you in the exact same place she left you, in the silence of unanswered messages. You learned to listen, to ask questions, to show genuine interest. You were told the secret was to be empathetic, attentive, and present. And then you met someone. She smiled, responded enthusiastically, laughed at your jokes. You seemed to be on the same page. The conversation flowed. Your likes and dislikes matched. Your eyes seemed to meet in complicit silence. You felt the connection, and she seemed to feel it too. And then, time passed. Her responses became more spaced out, less enthusiastic, less interested, until they disappeared. And you were left trying to understand, how could something so good, so real, so sincere, fade so quickly? This is where the trap begins. You believed that early emotional connection was a seal of approval, that if she was excited in the first few days, that meant something definitive. But desire isn't a logical construct, it's impulse. And feminine impulse is governed by emotional laws that your linear, objective masculine reasoning wasn't trained to understand. Let's break this illusion once and for all. A quick connection is not synonymous with deep attraction, and much less emotional retention. On the contrary, the more immediate and intense this supposed connection, the greater the risk of it being just a momentary release of dopamine, followed by a collapse of interest. You think you've been rejected, but the truth is worse. You've been labeled predictable. And predictability is the poison of seduction. The fatal error was believing that initial excitement automatically transforms into sustained interest. This may even work with men, but female desire operates with other dynamics. The philosopher Ortega y Gasset said that the combination of fascination and surrender is essential to love. And what fascinates isn't what's completely revealed. It's what holds secrets, what contains gaps, what creates tension. If you give in too quickly, if you reveal yourself completely in 2 days, if you say, "I really liked you," before she even asks herself if she likes you, you kill the mystery. And with the mystery, the fascination dies. Is it cruel? Yes. But it's real. And the reality of female psychology is that desire is intimately linked to the realm of doubt. Not rational doubt, but emotional doubt. Does he like me? Will he call me again? Is he talking to other people? Am I special to him? These are the questions that create the magnetic field of desire. And these are the questions you annihilate when you try to be too clear, transparent, and available. That's why in history, the greatest seducers never declared themselves too quickly. Casanova wrote letters that confused more than they clarified. He would say, "I miss your presence, but maybe I'm just projecting my longing onto you." This created confusion. This confusion created desire. Because desire doesn't feed on certainty, it feeds on unresolved tension. When you respond too quickly, compliment too much, share too much, you reveal your hand before the match begins. And then, no matter how attractive you are, no matter how interesting your life seems, you enter the realm of emotional predictability. And predictability kills the female instinct for conquest. Because now she knows she can have you. And if she knows she can have you, she doesn't need to desire you anymore. Her brain works this way, not out of malice, but because of biology. In ancient times, women needed to invest emotional energy only in partners with higher perceived value, partners who represented challenge, protection, and scarcity. This instinct remains alive. Today, this value is perceived in your ability to not give in too easily, to maintain emotional control, to be selective, to not appear needy, even when faced with the possibility of connection. This is why the quick connection is often a false positive. It seems like involvement, but it's just a reflection of your enthusiasm. The real test comes later, when she realizes you're there too much, too soon, too committed. And that's when her desire shuts down, because you offered everything, before she even had time to want it. This is the tragedy of good guys. Men who have good intentions, good conversations, good energy, but don't understand the invisible game of emotional tension. They don't know how to create scarcity. They don't know how to balance their interest. They don't know how to protect their own mystery. And so they are discarded. Not because they did something wrong, but because they did everything right at the wrong time. What destroys you isn't your kindness, but your predictability. You didn't lose her to another man. You lost her to silence, to what she imagined and didn't find, to the lack of emotional tension that your excessive presence caused. And here's the contradiction no manual told you. The more you invest too soon, the less valuable you seem. And the more she realizes she can have you, the less she wants you. This isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding that the game of attraction has its own laws. And these laws don't bend to your logic. They follow hers. And if you ignore this logic, you become another archived contact. Another message that doesn't deserve a reply. Now maybe you understand why that sudden silence wasn't about her. It was about you. About how much you gave in too quickly. About how much you believed connection was everything. And about how predictable that made you. But calm down. There's still a way to turn this around. Because if the mistake was giving in too soon, the next step is learning where to stop. How to maintain the balance between presence and mystery, between showing interest and protecting one's own value, Because there's a space, almost invisible, where a man becomes irresistible. A blind spot between the needy and the unattainable. A space called the sweet spot. And that's what we'll talk about now. You gave it all away, and she lost interest. Because the moment you became completely accessible, you killed the only thing keeping her desire alive: uncertainty. And it's precisely in this invisible territory between safety and risk that the most dangerous and powerful space in the attraction game arises. The sweet spot. Think of it this way. If on one side is the coldness that turns you into an uninteresting stranger, and on the other is the neediness that turns you into a desperate fan, the sweet spot is the midpoint where you become magnetic. It's the fine line where she's still trying to figure you out. Where she still doesn't know if she's won. Where she's still playing because the game isn't over. And if there's one brutal truth every man needs to accept, it's this. A woman only plays with those she hasn't yet won. But this sweet spot isn't easy to reach, and much less easy to maintain. Because it requires emotional control, strategic reading of the interaction, and above all, the ability to resist the urge to declare yourself too soon. This is where the average man gets lost. He wants to confirm, clarify, make everything obvious. But in seduction, the obvious is poison. Doubt is the true aphrodisiac. Let's look at the science behind this. A study conducted by the University of Virginia tested two groups of women who received messages from fictitious suitors. One group knew the men had really liked them. Another group thought the men might be interested but weren't sure. The result? The women in the second group were much more attracted, thought more about the men, and reported more emotional arousal. What does this prove? That ambiguity, the feeling of does he want me or not, exponentially increases female interest. This phenomenon has a technical name: reward intermittency. It's the same mechanism that addicts someone to gambling, social media, or toxic relationships. The female brain, when faced with a man who doesn't fully reveal himself, triggers waves of dopamine, the neurotransmitter of pleasure and anticipation. And there is no seduction without anticipation. A woman in love isn't satisfied with what she has. She's obsessed with what she hasn't yet achieved. This is exactly what history's great seducers understood. Robert Greene describes the enchanter as the one who is always available enough to be tempting, but always distant enough to be unattainable. Cleopatra, Casanova, Don Juan. They all operated in the space where nothing was guaranteed, where everything was possible, and where time was always on their side, because they knew how to wait, they knew how to provoke, they knew how to pull back before the kiss, they knew how to disappear at the height of tension. But the modern man, trained to please, to respond quickly, to be transparent, destroys this space without realizing it. He sends long texts on WhatsApp explaining how much he enjoyed the encounter. He responds within minutes. He sends good morning every day. And in doing so, he transforms from hunter to hunted. From mystery to open manual, from potential to confirmation. And the woman instinctively loses her motivation. Because the game has become monotonous. Because now she knows he's there. That he'll respond. That he's already hers. And what's already guaranteed doesn't excite. But be careful. Maintaining the sweet spot isn't about disappearing. It's not about ignoring her. That's sabotage, not strategy. The sweet spot is sophisticated territory. It requires ambiguous signals, calibrated communication, and a delicate balance between genuine interest and emotional scarcity. For example, you can compliment her, yes, but do it provocatively. Instead of saying you're beautiful, say, you have a dangerous way of making yourself noticed. Have you noticed? This activates her vanity without giving away your heart. It intrigues her. Another technique, strategic absence. Instead of texting every night, disappear for 2 days. But only after a moment of intense connection. Do this after an intense encounter. Let the longing grow. Let the silence speak for you. Her mind will fill the space with projections. She will imagine, she will invent, she will desire. Or use calculated mystery. Tell stories that don't end. Say, it was an intense night, but save that part for another time. This gap makes her want to know more. And those who want to know more remain emotionally trapped. That's the game. Keep her searching. Keep investing. Keep asking if you're truly committed or if it's still unconquered territory. But here comes the hard part. Your mind will fight it because you'll want confirmation. You'll want to ensure she likes you. You'll want to be sure. And that's where most people break down. They trade tension for security. They trade play for comfort. And with that, they become irrelevant. Therefore, mastering the sweet spot requires not just tactics, but self-control. Because the biggest mistake isn't being needy, it's being predictable. And the predictable man is doomed to silence. The difference between being remembered and being forgotten lies in how well you've managed to keep alive the most powerful doubt there is. Does he like me? From the moment that doubt dies, the game is over. And that's why the sweet spot needs to be nurtured skillfully. It's not a phase. It's a continuous dance of advances and retreats. It's an emotional system you learn to operate consciously. And the reward? The fascination. The attachment. The silent admiration that grows every time she feels she still needs to win you over. See, women don't say what they feel with words at this point, but they demonstrate it with actions. They respond more quickly. They drop hints. They start giving you compliments. They start dressing up more to see you. And finally, they ask the question you've been waiting so long to hear, but should never have forced. Do you like me? In that moment, you win. Because she verbalized her doubt, she revealed her inner game. And in doing so, she put herself in the position that was once yours, that of desire. You've figured out the game. You've grasped the power of doubt, the addiction to anticipation, and the allure of mystery. You've gone from predictable man to magnetic presence. But now comes the real turning point. Breaking out of emotional defensiveness and assuming silent control of the interaction. Not just holding her interest, but making her feel like she needs to win you over. Welcome to the most refined art of seduction, the transfer of initiative. See, in most modern dynamics, the man occupies a reactive role. He chases, starts conversations, suggests dates, tries to keep alive a flame that was born crooked. He positions himself as the one who needs convincing. And this is the biggest strategic mistake possible. Because the more you prove you're available, the more you reinforce that she doesn't need to do anything. That she's already won, that you've already surrendered yourself. And at that very moment, she shuts down emotionally. The reversal begins when you stop seeking attention and start demanding effort. And this doesn't happen by demanding, asking, or pressuring. It happens with selective absence and controlled surrender. The woman needs to realize that your attention isn't guaranteed, that time with you is rare, that your presence is precious, and that the biggest risk is losing you. It works like this. After maintaining the sweet spot for a while, you deliberately start to pull back. Not as punishment, but as provocation. You no longer ask her out, you hope she'll take that step. You don't send daily messages, you respond whenever you want, without guilt. You break the cycle of predictability and make it clear that from that point on, the continuation of the connection depends on her. And here's the secret. If you've handled the sweet spot well, she'll feel your absence. And she'll act. She'll ask, "Have you disappeared?" She'll send a meme just to start a conversation. She'll react to a story she would have previously ignored. And if you stay calm, you'll realize the tables have turned. This moment is delicate. Because the ego screams to respond with euphoria. But the master of seduction knows, you only respond with emotional reciprocity when she shows real effort. It's not about scorning. It's about creating an environment where she feels pleasure in investing, because she knows she doesn't have you completely yet. This is the principle of scarcity in action. It's what makes luxury brands thrive. They don't beg for attention. They let the world move to get them. When you adopt this stance, something curious happens. She begins to wonder if she measures up to you. And this questioning is the most powerful trigger for generating emotional investment in a woman. But be careful. The transfer of initiative doesn't happen to every woman. It only happens to those who have already gone through a well-managed period of emotional tension. In other words, if you're too cold at first, she won't even play the game. If you're too needy, she'll back out. But if you know how to activate the almost but not quite, then, at the right moment, you can back off and she'll come after you. Here comes a brutal phrase. Whoever invests first loses emotional control. But whoever makes the other person invest first leads. Because now it's no longer about pleasing you, it's about keeping her attention. And attention, for a woman, is the oxygen of desire. When she begins to realize you might disappear, she activates hunter mode. She starts planning what to say to impress you, thinking about what to wear for the next date, analyzing her own messages before sending them. Because now she feels she needs to keep your attention. Because you're no longer guaranteed. You're a rare prize. A mystery she hasn't yet solved. An emotional risk worth taking. And here's the climax. If you sustain this reversal long enough, she takes over the relationship cycle. She asks when you'll see each other. She suggests plans. She compliments. She validates. She feels she needs to keep you interested. And that changes everything. Because now, she's emotionally invested. And whoever invests protects what they have. This is the invisible game. The field where the masters of seduction operate. Not with cliches, but with absolute emotional control. With strategic absence. With measured presence. With selective interest. They make a woman play willingly, because they know that when she moves, she gets involved. And when she gets involved, she gets attached. Of course, this takes courage, because yes, she might not come after you. But if that happens, it's because her interest was never real. And in that case, your detachment protected you. The truly seductive man isn't afraid of loss. He knows that attachment is the path to emotional slavery, and that only those who are willing to let go have the power to stay. And here's the gist of it all. You shouldn't chase a woman. You must create conditions where she feels pleasure in winning you over. You're not the prize because you say you are. You are the prize when she feels she might lose you. This is the new era of seduction. The era of reversed initiative, where silence is worth more than insistence, where space is worth more than presence, where mystery is more important than confirmation. And the result? A bond where she doesn't just want to be with you, she feels lucky to be with you. And if she stops responding, you don't insist, you don't complain, you don't ask what happened. Because you know, those who stop playing have removed themselves from the board. And in this game, you only play with those who truly want to play. She didn't ignore you, she tested you. But the test didn't come with advance warning, nor with a second call. It came as silence, as absence, as seen at 10:17 p.m. And you, not understanding the invisible code, responded desperately. You insisted. You tried to prove your worth with words. You tried to rekindle something that only existed while you were a challenge. But now you know. The problem wasn't her. The problem was the imbalance between your emotional value and your commitment. The problem was that you gave yourself completely before she even asked herself if she wanted all of that. The greatest prison of the modern man isn't the fear of rejection. It's the addiction to pleasing. It's believing that the more willing you are, the more grateful she'll be. But women don't want gratitude. They want tension. They sense when there's something in you that hasn't yet been deciphered. That can't be tamed. That pulses but won't surrender. And therein lies the new path. Don't be the guy who chases, but the man who creates movement, who leads without begging, who activates without holding back. Because true power lies in offering space for her to reveal herself. In being so emotionally complete that you don't need to beg for attention. You inspire her. You provoke her. You invite her, but never offer yourself. This is the essence that keeps her from forgetting you. Because the female mind is emotionally associative. It records not what you said, but how you made her feel. And a man who oscillates between mystery and magnetism, between presence and absence, between desire and distance, this man activates an emotional memory in her. An eternal what if. A what did he mean by that? A why didn't he write me again? This what if is what keeps you alive in her mind when all the others have become statistics. Because you weren't just another guy, you were a field of possibilities. An emotional challenge, a living experience of tension and pleasure. And that she won't forget. But don't mistake it for a game. What we're building here isn't manipulation, it's awareness. It's masculine presence elevated to its most strategic state. It's knowing when to be silent, when to disappear, when to pull, when to back off. And, above all, it's knowing that your value doesn't depend on her response. Your value is internal, unshakable, independent. If you understand this, you've already differentiated yourself from 95% of men who still live trapped in the illusion of automatic reciprocity. Seduction isn't about giving and receiving, Seduction is about giving the minimum until she desires the maximum. It's about creating space for her to invest. It's about transforming absence into desire, silence into symbol, waiting into erotic tension. Now listen to me carefully. If you've made it this far, you're not ordinary. And if you apply what you saw in this video, you'll realize something extraordinary. You'll not only start attracting more women, you'll start selecting better. Because a man who masters emotional seduction doesn't chase anyone. He chooses, he observes, he allows. And that, my friend, changes everything. So here's my final challenge. Comment below about the moment you realized you were being tested by a woman and didn't realize it in time. Share your experience. This isn't just about you. It's about all the men who are still in the dark, falling into emotional traps that could be avoided with a single mindset shift. See you in the next video. And until then, remember, you don't have to say you're different. You need to be the kind of man she feels she can lose. And that's why she never lets go.